And good morning. This is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. It is Friday, January the 20th, 2023, and today is a very special day in our nation's capital. It is the annual March for Life. Many years in past, I've had the honor to be on the National Mall by the United States Capitol, marching with those who are fighting to save the lives of our babies. And that is why I decided to do a special broadcast today to talk about saving our babies. Yes, saving our babies. And I'll tell you what, headed into preparing for this show this morning, my computer crashed, everything crashed. And I tell you what, devil's working overtime, but you know what? God prevails and the power of his spirit prevails over this podcast and over our nation, most importantly, to fight for the lives of the unborn, to fight for the mothers who are struggling with the decision, to protect those mothers, to bring their baby to birth, to provide life for those babies. You know, when I ran for state house and I loved being on the campaign trail, I loved talking to the constituents. I loved engaging with them. I loved hearing their stories, but more than anything, I loved seeing their children. I loved talking to their kids. I loved hearing their stories about educating their children. And also, more than anything, fighting for those babies, fighting for the lives of our unborn, saving our babies. You hear that, North Carolina? You hear that, California? You hear that, Pennsylvania? You hear that, Massachusetts? We are about to save the lives of the unborn, saving our babies. I am pro-life, and I stand here today, right here, so thrilled to be able to the fact that I can still talk to you and each and every one of you out there so we can fight, not just sit here in our tuchuses and talk about it, but get out there and fight, be on the front lines, whether you are in California, whether you are in Utah, whether you are in Ohio, or you are here in the great state of North Carolina. There is something to be done, and that is to prevent the abortion pill from going into those CVSs and going into those Walgreens. Those CVSs and Walgreens don't need to be carrying an abortion pill for a young teenage girl to go in there and make an adult decision. No, that is not what that is about. No, those abortion pills need to be revoked and need those trucks carrying them. I pray for the truck drivers, but may your tires bust and may those CVS and Walgreens abortion pills somehow dissolve somewhere else because they do not need to be available in our states. Yes. Do you hear what I'm saying? Yes. It is all about saving the lives of our babies. So, as we are headed into this day of March for Life, as you will see the news media and the legacy media sway the conversation, well, you're going to hear some powerful interviews that I did pre-record. They are time-stamped, but you know what? The subject still remains true and it still remains current. I'm going to introduce you to my dear friend Mallory Carroll, who joined me late last year. She's with the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. She was a vice president of communications, and she has been on the front lines fighting for our babies for many, many years. We work together in our nation's capital, and she is a powerful woman of faith and a powerful voice of leadership fighting for the lives of the unborn. And then second, I'm bringing over Dr. Matthew Harrison. He did a pre-record me end of last year talking about his abortion pill reversal. Yes, we can reverse this. And if you have a chance, go to EWTN News Nightly. They did an interview that they just posted online with an abortion survivor. Yes, I want you to hear this powerful story. So without further ado, we're going to go over right to Mallory's interview that she pre-recorded with me. You do not want to miss this. I am so thankful for each and every one of you who are joining here at Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. Thank you so much for being here. Friend Mallory Carroll joining us this morning. She is the Vice President of Communications, and she is with the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Mallory, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Eden. It's such a pleasure to be talking to such a dear friend and about a subject that I care so much about. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Well, first and foremost, let's talk to the audience. We are streaming here in Eastern North Carolina. The streaming service also goes to Raleigh, North Carolina. So if we could talk about the amazing things that happened earlier this year with the pro-life movement, but also what does that look like for this battleground state for November?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, North Carolina is such a key battleground state. which is why your listeners in the Raleigh area, they perhaps have gotten a visit from somebody from Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America and our partner, Women Speak Out PAC. But we are at a critical time for the pro-life movement. So on June 24th, we had the Supreme Court overturn Roe versus Wade and usher us into this new jobs era, allowing for the first time the people through their elected representatives, both in the state of North Carolina, as well as at the federal level, to pass laws that reflect the values of the people. And so this has thrust the abortion issue into the spotlight nationally, and especially in battleground states where we have these very tight Senate races. And what our message to North Carolina voters is that we need you to turn out now more than ever. If you're pro-life, our battle did not end on June 24th. In fact, it just multiplied the fronts that we are going to be fighting on all 50 states and in Congress. So we've got to stay engaged politically, culturally. Now we have the opportunity to actually make a real progress passing and enacting life-saving law and policy that we did not have before. It's incredible. We spent 50 years working to overturn the Supreme Court decision so that we could have this opportunity before us, but it doesn't mean that we can slow down at all, really. And especially, we're really hoping that pro-life Republicans who can win on this issue when they expose the extremism of their pro-abortion Democrat opponents, that they can win elections, because this position is not just morally right, it's politically smart, and put us in a situation in Washington where we can pass a minimum federal standard to protect babies. Earlier this week, Senator Graham introduced this bill to protect babies at a minimum at 15 weeks. And that's going to allow lawmakers, federal lawmakers elected from North Carolina, to say, hey, we want to be a part of a country, a 50-state nation that protects babies at least at this point, even if North Carolinians want to go earlier and protect babies earlier in pregnancy. Yeah.
Well, there's something that you mentioned. So June 24th, it was overturned. But what I was looking at your website, you hit the nail on the head. We are looking at the most pro-abortion administration ever. And so for this to happen during this administration, I'm sure it was a major shock to their systems. But here's the thing. November is right around the corner. Yes. We are looking at November, and then we're also thinking ahead to 2024. So from the standpoint of the voter in the great state of North Carolina, but across the board, what can we as Americans do to basically fight? Because that administration, I mean, I could rant all day long. They do not represent a majority of this nation. It is such a small number that they represent when it comes to this. The further south you get, I say the freer you become. And the further south you get, the more pro-life they are. So when it comes down to that, I mean, I'm gonna stop talking now. I could rant. Rant all day.
But you're spot on, Eden. I mean, that's the thing. This administration is representing less than 10% of the population when it comes to the abortion issue. And they are backed up, and spurred on by the pro-abortion leadership in the Democrat-run House and Senate. I mean, they've had multiple votes in this Congress alone, failed votes because they can't get a majority on this very deceptively named Women's Health Protection Act, which would interfere it would basically codify, so cement in law the status quo that we had under Roe versus Wade. So abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, paid for by taxpayers, alongside China and North Korea in this regard. And it would completely interfere with the right of North Carolinians to elect lawmakers to the state legislature to pass pro-life laws. It would get rid of all existing state and federal regulations on abortion. Obviously, there's not that many federal regulations. Partial birth abortion is the only federal law that specifically deals with abortion, but it would stop future North Carolina lawmakers from passing laws that reflect the values of the people in that state.
Right.
And so if we value our freedoms, and I know that your listeners do, and I do,
yes.
We've got to stay vigilant about this. And you asked, what can people do?
Right.
Stay educated on this issue. Something like the Women's Health Protection Act sounds like great legislation. Why wouldn't we support that? Kind of like the Inflation Reduction Act. Sounds good. Very deceptively named.
Oh my gosh. Totally.
So, staying informed on this issue and then influencing in your spheres of influence, talking to your friends, talking to your neighbors, being bold with your beliefs, because we're really, there's a sort of crisis of courage right now, I think, for people to stand up and talk about what it is that they believe in. And maybe it's, we've been beaten down after two and a half years of this COVID.
It's only been 2.5 years. It feels a lot longer.
I know. It's, we're coming through a really unique time. And so boldness is really required, and courage is contagious, I think.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that, the crisis of courage. And you as a woman in a phenomenal organization, walking alongside of Marjorie Dannenfelser for how many years, working your way up in the ranks to Vice President of Communications. Let's talk about the courage. Let's talk about the journey, and let's talk about women in leadership. Talk to and think about the college students who are, okay, what's next for me?
Yes. I started at Susan B. Anthony, what it was then called Susan B. Anthony List, in 2009. It was my second job out of college after, third really, after making coffee at Seattle's Best, and then teaching English in France for a little less than a school year. I was not a great teacher. I was in a really vulnerable spot, to be honest. I was, I had my student loans were becoming due. I had studied politics in college, but wasn't really sure what I was going to do with that. And I had always been pro-life, but it wasn't something that at that point was animating my life and driving any type of activism. I was way more passive about it. And I had the opportunity to intern at SBA. And I think unlike a lot of college students today, I wasn't really thinking about how an internship at a pro-life organization would affect my future, in a negative way. I was just like, I need something to do with my time, and I believe in this. Let me just see what it's like. And that was absolutely God pulling on my heart and pulling me in the direction that he wanted me to go in. He absolutely broke my heart for the babies lost to abortion and the moms wounded, because through the internship, I came into contact with so many women who have chosen abortion and come to regret it. And also I met Jill Stanek, who you may know. Yes. Our mutual friend who was a nurse in Illinois. She saw babies being born alive and left to die. And that just was so shocking to me. I was like, we are a world-class country. We are the leaders of the free world, and we're leaving our citizens, our most vulnerable baby citizens, to die alone in utility closets in hospitals in the suburbs of Chicago, one of our nation's great cities. It was shocking. I feel myself getting chills as I talk about it, just because it was so horrifying to me. And I was convicted that year that God wanted me in the pro-life movement to develop my talents as a communicator and to move forward in that area. So I was so blessed to have Marjorie's example.
Yes.
She's an amazing boss. And
Yes.
our executive vice president, Emily Midget, who has been with the organization for just as long, like just incredible women leaders. So I had wonderful mentors, and I had the that inspired the courage of my conviction. For if I could see Marjorie going out and being so vulnerable and talking about abortion and abortion politics at a time when the pro-life movement was not getting fair coverage from the legacy media. And now the same is true right now. But for a while, over the last 10 years, I think we were in a position where we were seen as we're very well respected by the media, and our ideas were as well, and especially the political power that we were able to wield.
Right.
So it's just been incredible, and it's the Susan B. Anthony and the suffragettes, they believed that you couldn't build the rights of one group by breaking the rights of another. The unborn child. We can't elevate women by literally tearing our children limb from limb. And that sort of ethos is very prevalent in the pro-life movement, which is predominantly women-led. At a place like Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, we're about building each other up. All boats rise with the tide sort of deal. And so
yes,
it's been a great place to be and to lead and mentor young women. It's been a wonderful 13-year tenure.
Oh my goodness, it's been 13 years. I did not realize that. Where has time gone? Well, let's talk about that. In the 13 years of your service there, having worked with various presidents, I know that my boss, as I was a former appointee for Trump, was such a huge support to the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Talk to me a little bit, and talk to our audience, who I know we're in Trump land down here.
Yeah.
Would love to hear some of the things that the president did.
So this is one of the most exciting things for me over the last, my history at Susan B. Anthony has been that, for years prior to the 2016 election, we were working so hard to explain to candidates this political reality that if you're pro-life, great. You have to be able to talk about this to voters and explain what it means to you and what that means for your leadership. And going on offense, exposing the extremism of pro-abortion Democrats, that this is a foolproof way to not only encourage your own pro-life base, but to mobilize people that are maybe in the middle, because people just don't realize that the horrific abortion policies we've had in our country. And so after years of talking to Republican establishment candidates and trying to get their consultants on board with this, even though it's so evident in the polling and we've got such great case studies, Donald Trump comes along and he just understood this intuitively. And remember, Eden, the very last general election debate with Hillary Clinton in 2016, the first question to come up from Chris Wallace was about abortion. And Donald Trump did the most fantastic job exposing Hillary Clinton's abortion extremism in no uncertain terms. He was just, it was evident to me in that moment that he had seen some diagrams of what late-term abortion looks like, or just like any abortion procedure, because he had such a visceral reaction.
Yes.
And it was so powerful. And do you know that the number one and number two, in the days leading up to the election, the most Googled search terms alongside Trump and Clinton was abortion. People were trying to figure out the abortion positions of the two candidates. And Donald Trump made that happen by using a national debate to go on offense and say Hillary Clinton is okay with babies being ripped from their mother's wombs days, hours before they're born. That is completely the truth.
Yes.
Sadly, it's insane that that's the truth. But it is
disgusting, vile, and everything in between.
Yes, and he was just so you know, factual and straightforward about his policy positions. I'm going to appoint pro-life justices. He promises made, promises kept. He changed. We're in this position now because of Donald Trump and because of pro-life activists.
Yes.
That we have the Supreme Court that we do. That, you know, all of the fruit right now that we're seeing in states that are taking, you know, measures to protect unborn lives and women, that's because of the court that Donald Trump gave us, because of the electoral victories that the pro-life movement gave him, and because of the hard work of state lawmakers, you know, who have been working these last 50 years, chipping away at Roe, sending lawsuits up the chain, you know, from the lower courts all the way up to the Supremes. And everything came together in this beautiful moment.
Yes. Yes. Well, you know, he was so intuitive, like you said, in exposing an even greater aspect of what was going on in the swamps of DC.
Yes.
I mean, you and I collectively served up there for 20 plus years in many facets. And it's just, we sit here and we've been so exposed to the vile aspects of the Clinton, you know, mindset and regime. And to have something, and I can say that, I'll say that all day long. And then having a commander in chief who truly is a commander in chief, and who really did think ahead to what would be coming, especially in the lives and protecting the lives of the unborn. I sit here and just remember hearing some of your comments when I was a missionary in China. I went over there for a while and just remember being with all those precious little girls, knowing that they were seen as second class, third class citizens, if you will, and knowing that many of them could have ended up in, you know, in the city streets alone and suffering and things of that nature. I'm just grateful for the women like you who come alongside of these legislators and educate them on really what is happening, and educating those at the local level to really talk about the issues. My husband and I do mentor. We mentor young kids. We mentor teenagers. And I know you and I, when we were this age in 13, 14, 15, we necessarily didn't have to talk about these issues. Now they're at the very forefront of this next generation. My question to you as we wrap up, what would you say as having been mentored, and what would you say as being a mentor to those young teenage girls as they are being faced with more than we ever could have imagined and talking about the life issues? How would you break that down for them?
It's tricky. I'm glad that I didn't grow up in this age of social media and some of the, you know, the more difficult aspects. There's just so much exposure to really horrific things at the few clicks, you know, and the bullying that happens online. I would say make connections with people in real life. Stay very close to the people that you know, face to face and with your family. And truly, before you go spouting anything off on the internet, make sure you know what you really believe.
Right.
And have backup for your beliefs. And when it comes to defending the pro-life position, there are just unlimited resources and women out there who are doing such a fantastic job at this. You know, we have nothing to fear as a movement. And I guess so that's what I would say to young people. Like, don't be afraid of pushback on your pro-life position, because as a movement, we have nothing to hide and nothing to fear from open debate. The more that we talk about abortion and what it truly is, the more likely we are going to win hearts and minds over to our side. So there's no difficult question that doesn't have a compassionate answer. And there is no woman whose situation is too dire that the pro-life movement won't rally around her. I would say connect with pregnancy resource centers in your area, get to know the heart of the pro-life movement, the hands and feet, and be a part of that before, while you're doing any other type of activism and advocacy. advocacy, because the pregnancy centers, and there are so many great resources in North Carolina, especially. What a state with a heart for the moms and their unborn children.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. During the campaign, I was exposed to the pro-life centers here in this area, and they are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they are truly on the front lines, really integrated themselves into this area to really fight to protect the lives of the unborn. To have Dr. Pincus on last week with North Carolina Right to Life. He spoke very highly of you. He mentioned that you're going to be at the prayer breakfast in January 2023. And I wanted to get with you as I was studying up on everything that you were doing. I've listened to some of your podcasts. Are you there? Okay, there you are. Okay. You blacked out for a second. But I wanted to talk with you. I know legacy media has probably distorted the abortion pill reversal treatment. And I wanted to hear from you specifically. Talk to me about the treatment that you are doing, and talk to me, and a couple of the questions that instantly came to mind, and I know we talked about this yesterday. The effects of the mother and the effects of the child as you do the pill reversal treatment. I would love to hear from you to kick off what you have seen, what you have witnessed, and the power of doing this. I'm very much supportive of this. And so,
sure.
So
in
all the moms that are listening, I would, it's a very conservative audience. So.
Yeah. So in 2006, I had an outpatient office. I was doing inpatient, outpatient, and obstetrics. And we were also doing fertility care treatment, which my partner had gone through training at the Pope Paul VI Institute in Nebraska for. A lot of this is based on progesterone replacement for women who have what's called luteal phase defects, and have miscarriages because they can't carry babies to term. And so a young lady came into my office who had taken RU46 and wanted to know if she could reverse it or do anything to save her baby. She had not taken the second medication in the process, which is called Cytotec, which induces labor, but she had taken mifepristone, which is the kind of trade name for RU46. And what that does is it's a progesterone blocker. It blocks receptors in the uterus, or the lining where the placenta attaches the baby to the mother, and essentially shrivels up those those blood vessels,
Mhm.
causing the baby to lose oxygen, nutrition, and then essentially the placenta separates away from the uterus. The baby dies and then comes out after taking the Cytotec, the labor-inducing medication. So she had come to me. She had taken the pill about 36 hours prior. She said, "Is there anything we could do?" So I knew that we had progesterone in the office. I said, "You know what? I'd done research at Johns Hopkins, at
Mhm.
Duke University, at Medical College of Virginia in my training prior to becoming a doctor. I knew, simple cell receptor biology and how that worked, and that we could probably outcompete the RU46
Mhm.
by giving extra progesterone so that we could reactivate those receptors and save the baby." So I told her this had never been done before, but we used progesterone. Progesterone has been used safely in pregnant women for 50 years
Mhm.
without serious side effects, especially when we give it in doses that are simply identical to biological doses.
Mhm.
And so she agreed and she wanted to do that. So we moved forward, gave her progesterone injections. That was on a Thursday. The following night, she actually started to have some cramping, and we were afraid we were going to lose the baby. So she went to the emergency room, got an ultrasound, saw the baby's heartbeat for the first time, which she was excited about. And she actually did have a little, kind of like a little small a hemorrhage cyst that was forming between the placenta and the uterus. And the ER doctor said, hope for the best, go back home. The baby's still alive. She did. She stopped bleeding. She came back in Monday. We confirmed the baby was still living. We gave her more injections of progesterone through her first trimester, and the baby did fine.
Mhm.
Was born in March of 2007, is now 15 years old, healthy young lady. And since that time, so that was the first one.
Mhm.
Since that time, we started to receive calls from other physicians around the country and around the world wondering how to do this. And so Dr. George Delgado involved me in a study, his first study that was published in 2012, just looking at 6 patients who had had a reversal attempt.
Mhm.
4 of those women carried the pregnancies to term and were healthy. And, the conclusions were, of course, this is a very small sample size. There's no kind of controls or anything. But the conclusion was, we should look into this. This might be a way of saving babies when mothers change their mind about taking
Mhm.
the abortion pill.
Mhm.
So over the course of many years after that, he published another study with over 500 women that were included in the study
Mhm.
and met inclusion criteria. And when they took the abortion reversal protocol correctly,
Mhm.
up to 68% of the women were able to save their babies.
Oh, wow.
That is a lot higher than if you do nothing.
Right.
The studies, and when you do a literature review, and I published a paper with Mary Davenport in a journal that essentially was a literature review of what happens if you do nothing. Anywhere from 7 to 23% of babies will survive if you just take the first pill in the abortion process and don't take the second one.
Okay.
And that's if you do nothing. So we know that up to a quarter of women, if they do nothing, can have a baby survive an abortion. A lot of that kind of depends on how far along she is,
Mhm.
pregnancy, the doses that are given, and that type of thing. But our studies were pretty solid that if you follow the progesterone replacement protocol, that up to 68% of the mothers will be able to carry that baby to term. And we have not seen any significant side effects to babies. We have not seen significant side effects to mothers, other than if they get the injections, they can sometimes have some pain, obviously, at the injection site and irritation. We have also found that taking pills instead of shots are just as effective, if not can be even more effective than if you take the shots. For one reason is because women are more compliant with that. They're more willing to take a pill than to take an injection, and it's very easy and it's cheaper, and we've had good success with that. So To date, in 2016, Heartbeat International took over our hotline, which was a national hotline, and now they have taken it worldwide, so that we have over 1,000 providers worldwide that can reverse abortions. We have successfully reversed over 3,500 babies have been born alive and healthy since this time. So we're really excited about how this is progressing. And one of the very important parts about this is that as states have started to curtail abortion access,
Yes.
there are more and more women who are taking abortion pills. Pretty soon, it's essentially now over 50% of abortions are now medical or medicine abortions, chemical abortions. And that number is projected to get to 70% really within the next few years. So these are going through mail orders. People are getting them online, pills online.
Mm-hmm.
And so there needs to be a lot of access. There's telemedicine abortions that are occurring. These are all very dangerous because women are in very remote places.
Yes.
Abortions in their homes, and a lot of these can lead to either infections if a woman has an infection and is trying to have an abortion, and if the abortion is not completed, they're stranded in the middle of nowhere with a bad infection, or they can hemorrhage. If anyone of you have seen the movie Unplanned, that is a very accurate depiction of what can happen in an RU46 abortion. And so women can hemorrhage, and if they're stranded in the middle of nowhere getting a tele-abortion, they have no access to blood products. They have no access to quality health care. So it's really dangerous, these tele-abortions that are happening. And so this is one thing that we're starting to look into, is how can we safely and effectively deliver reversal to women and offer that, plus offer follow-up support and prenatal care for who are seeking to reverse their abortions and save their babies.
Do you find that North Carolina Right to Life or Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America would be those conduits to kind of carry that message for what you are doing with the pill reversal as you are wanting to educate more, or is it having, because I love both of those organizations and I'm friends with Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. My other question is it having you be able to come on podcasts and speak to the masses where the legacy media is not going to distort the content and really educate those? And then my third comment to that is something Dr. Pincus and I talked about last week was educating the next generation, educating our teenagers, educating those who are becoming promiscuous at much younger ages now because of the social media and things that are happening. So are they, in fact, even knowing, let me go get it. North Carolina now is destination for abortion, all of those things. What would be the best way for us, the conservative audience here at Common Sense America, for the moms and the dads at the kitchen tables and the real discussions that happen across America? What can we do to help you educate on this opportunity to save the lives of the unborn?
Yes, that's a good question. And, any mass efforts that we can do across the board to get this message out are important. And then we have to speak out, not be afraid to speak out against misinformation.
Yeah.
And a lot of fear mongering that's going on, and a lot of stuff that's being talked about in media now. There's a lot going around about saying that, oh, well, now women can't have miscarriages, or women with ectopic pregnancies aren't going to get health care because it's going to be termed as an abortion. That's complete fabricated lie. Nowhere in the country is anyone being denied access to health care when they have an ectopic pregnancy, when they have a septic issue with chorioamnionitis, or any of these issues that are endangering the life of the mother. The doctors obviously need to treat both patients, be as aggressive as possible in healing the mother. That's going to be the best way to also heal and take care of the baby in the womb. So certainly all of those issues. The other thing that's very important is that we need to educate our healthcare community. So, I'm an assistant professor at Campbell Osteopathic School of Medicine. I have students that rotate through my hospital, and I teach them essentially basic pro-life medicine. Some of this stuff they've never heard or experienced before, just a different attitude when you see a patient, and this goes from womb to tomb. And so this is not only prenatal care patients, but also people at the end of life when we're protecting their dignity of life, when we're protecting the family's ability to spend time with them, their families' concerns about feeding, nutrition, and all that. We have to educate our healthcare system. And most people go into healthcare because they want to save lives, not end lives.
Right.
So, but when they get into the kind of liberal, progressive healthcare academia machine, they get fed a lot of stuff and practically brainwashed in a lot of ways about how controlling someone's healthcare is more important than kind of treating the patient.
Mm-hmm.
In trying to look at things with a positive life perspective rather than kind of this culture of death that seems to be glooming over top of hospitals and over top of our society in general.
Mm-hmm. I know we're coming up on the hour, and I wanted to get one final question into you as we head into 2023. And I've been asking these questions of the conservative commentators who come on the show as we are projecting what is ahead in 2023. It's what you said, educating the health profession and educating, because I feel like in many ways we at Common Sense, we have common sense here. We see what is happening around us, but yet I sit there and say, I'm going to go down this path really quickly with you. My husband is a veteran, and I don't want to take him to the VA. I am very careful on where I go, where he goes. And as we project into 2023, you said there is this cloud of more of death than life. And so as we look into 2023, what can we do as individuals, as a community comes together? What can we do in preparing for what is ahead on the scale? We hear all the things of legacy media. They're talking about this, and this. But at the end of the day, I don't want to stop fighting for what we believe in. I want to fight for life. I want to go to Raleigh. I want to meet with Dr. Bill and say, hey, you know what? We can kick open these doors. We can raise awareness. I don't want us to stop. But as we head into 2023 with the newly elected leaders for both House, Senate, and then here in the great state of North Carolina, what are just a couple tools that you could give us after hearing? I've heard your story. I want to get you and your wife back here to really break down your story on a more 30, 40-minute podcast, because I've heard your story. I've heard the impact that you guys are making. Out of your toolkit, your faith toolkit, what can you say to my husband, myself, and those in the great state of North Carolina who want to continue to fight to prevent abortions from happening and the projected, thinking of what they're wanting to force down our throats as we head into 2023? You don't have to get political. I do that. But from your faith toolkit, what would you say to my audience in that sense as we head into 2023?
Yeah, I think honestly, the biggest thing is very, very simple and straightforward, and it's love your neighbor.
Yeah.
That starts at home. So loving your family, loving your wife, your husband, your children, bringing them up in a faith-friendly atmosphere, mm-hmm. where you pray with them, where you show that you're committed to your faith and that you're committed to, your moral standards, and that you're not going to compromise. And if that means you lose your job, then that means you lose your job. Right. And I've seen that in my own family where, I've had to stand up for things, concerning abortion, concerning vaccinations, concerning different things. And, you don't want to come across as some, like a wacko conspiracy theorist. You also don't want to come across as someone who's unscientific or unknowledgeable.
Right.
You have those tools, and ready to defend, what you believe and what you're standing against. But love your neighbor. And so when your family knows that and practices that, then you can go and reach out and love your neighbor, that is in a crisis pregnancy, or that is alone in a nursing home, or that doesn't have family. And then when you've gotten good at that, you can love your enemy.
Mhm.
And that enemy is your neighbor too.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes when, I'm down at the sidewalk and praying or offering support for women down there, sometimes the main people I'm praying for are the people that are the escorts and the security teams, because many of them carry a lot of baggage and are very
Yeah.
dangerous individuals, and they need a lot of prayer. And when you can show them the love of Christ, and
Yes.
get a neighbor, a loving neighbor to them, that will carry a lot of power and will go a long way towards healing our culture in general.
Mhm.
I think those are the main things. Love your neighbor, and one person at a time. Don't feel like you have to go out and convert and, take care of an entire nation of people. Do it
Mhm.
one person at a time, and you're going to make a difference one person at a time, and then that's going to multiply over the years.
Mm. On that note, you ended it perfectly for Here at Common Sense America, because as we head into the holiday season, the Christmas season, the